Hi, I'm Dr. Matt Harris, and this video is a continuation in my series on the tenets of educational technology leadership. In this particular video, I'm going to focus on information technology, or IT. Obviously, being an EdTech leader, you have to have a firm grounding in the IT or the hardware and software elements of a school, the infrastructure as it were, in order to make sure that all of your endeavors to improve operations or improve teaching and learning are based in a very sound system or set of systems that make the school hum, the school tick. Now, what I'm going to talk about in this video are those areas of IT that you have to have knowledge in or to understand in order to be successful. I'm not going to suggest that you have to be an expert or you have to have your hands in the middle of a computer at all times, but you need to be able to speak the language and understand elements of information technology or IT in order to be fluent and to be able to plan and strategize, evaluate, and analyze those elements of the school that you're using to make sure that all of those long-term goals, the short-term operational elements, and the innovations you're trying to create can come to fruition. If you don't have this knowledge, you really are not going to be able to successfully complete the base elements of your job. So let's just jump right into it. There are 6 key areas that I suggest you understand in terms of information technology in order to be successful in that leadership position. The first being communication systems. We have to understand as EdTech leaders, how do we facilitate information flow between various elements of the school community? How is an email sent or a phone system working? And where is that information communications flow? Are you using Google? Are you using Microsoft? How are we sending information out and collaborating with documents? What are the ins and outs of those systems? What are the positives and negatives? Why would you choose a Google over a Microsoft or a Microsoft over a Google? Why would you choose a particular email system? How are those backed up? Those sorts of things. Next, I suggest that you have a firm understanding of server architecture, be it within the local context or putting information up on the cloud. So servers end up being a very key part of our school systems. And as the IT element of your job, you're going to have to understand what those mean for you in terms of an infrastructure and maintenance framework. Why would you pick something to be local? Why would you need to pick something to be cloud? How do you virtualize your systems? Why would you go with virtualization? What sort of tools do you use there? And again, you don't need to have your hands into the computer to do this yourself, but you need to understand that architecture. You need to understand why you would make particular decisions. What are the budgeting ramifications for there? What are the management ramifications for there? And tying back to this management piece that we talked about in an earlier video, what are the human resources requirements to find people to manage your servers? As you get further and deeper into the servers, they're going to provide a level of service for you that can allow for different programs in other areas to support operations within the administrative side that may benefit from being out on the cloud or may require, for various reasons, to be within the local system. So you need to understand the technology behind a server and what those ramifications will do for you as an organization. In conjunction with the server, you have to have an understanding of the client machines. So one of the big pieces of educational technology is making sure that students and staff, even parents and other community members have a level of access to the technology in order to do the impactful things you're looking to do. Well, you have to understand what it means to develop a client base, a client machine system. What sort of client machines are you going with? How do you operate an Apple device versus a Windows device versus a Chromebook or a Linux device? How many of them do you get? Do you go one-to-one? What are the ramifications? What are the implications of, say, choosing a particular operating system? What do the clients need in order to be successful? How are you going to manage those systems? There's a lot of elements in there within the technology that tie into these other pieces like the data systems and the communications and the server. The access to all of that comes through the client machine. So you have to understand the technology of an individual computer, but then also understand how the user is going to interact with that computer. So that's an element of the IT that you have to be versed in and you have to understand how to speak about and strategize about in order to be successful. And scalable. How do you scale for a small school with a few hundred students versus a couple thousand students? What are you going to do there? How do you change your ratios and change some of the elements within there? Next, and perhaps the most emerging area, is this notion of data systems and data flow. So data systems within the IT context they really come out of a combination of all of these elements, right? So a data system may be like an admission system or a student information system, a finance system, those elements that could be held within your servers that are being accessed by your client machines in a way that is similar to your communication systems. Now, most data systems will meet a very specific requirement. So you have to be able to translate the requirements of a particular department for what you're going to create or what you're going to recommend from an outside vendor or what you're going to build yourself. And in doing that, you have to have this kind of holistic understanding of what does the data do for you, which comes into another part around data management and security that I'll get to in just a minute. With these data systems, with these vendor-controlled systems, you have to understand how they work. What are the ins and outs of their connectivity to your networking, to your networks, to your client machines, to the needs of what's going on within, excuse me, the needs of what's going on within the organization. What is the technology behind it? So I'll give you an example. We look at some data systems that are completely cloud-based. Well, because of that, we have to have some parameters in place within our local networking system to ensure that we can interact with those with that program. Make sure that we can get the data, make sure that we can connect in and out. We also have some systems that are held directly on local servers. So we have actual physical boxes here that are tied to what are called UPSs, Universal Power Systems, to ensure backup and ensure uptime. The databases are held here, and then we're interacting and managing those things on site. So our connections, those two systems, and our interactions with them and our management of them, their administration, varies. And so as an EdTech leader, you have to understand, how do those systems work? How do you interact with them? How do you connect them? And as I'm saying, connecting, a big piece is how do you take all of these data systems to meet individual needs and create an overall ecology, an overall environment within your school where the data can move seamlessly between these various elements. It can become very challenging, and it's not anything that any one of us is an expert on, but it's important that we understand the challenges, understand what those designs mean, and when somebody starts talking about a SQL database, having the understanding and the knowledge to be able to do that. And I'm not suggesting that you can go in and configure these devices or configure these databases, but you understand when somebody discusses with you, what are the problems if I do this, what are the potentials if I do this, and being able to do that from a very knowledgeable level. The next piece that you have to have an understanding of is networking within the school. Now, networking within the school comes at varying levels, be it hardwired networks or the Wi-Fi system or connections to the outside, be it the pipe to the internet, firewalls, content management, traffic shaping, making sure that we can control various packets and various information coming back and forth, prioritizing traffic, limiting flow, security for our overall systems. It's a very broad field, and there are a number of experts similar to the data field that are available to you to help. But you have to understand, what are the touch points in terms of networking for the school? Where does the networking end and the client machine begin? Or where does the server start and then pass over to the networking system? What are those general architectures within your school? How do you distribute out your access points? What is your Wi-Fi coverage? What are your security procedures? Have you determined how you're going to shape your traffic so that students or teachers are not spending too much time on, say, a YouTube or some video chatting service, and you instead want to make sure that there's an equal amount of information flow and data flow for all participants, all stakeholders? How do you handle outside people that come in, or vendors or board members that are on site on a regular basis? There are elements here that you have to have some knowledge in and be able to strategize and speak intelligently as an EdTech leader. Now, as you're developing this and you're developing these understandings, you may be in a great situation where you actually have an IT manager who manages it. but you need to be able to have the conversations with them of why they're making particular decisions, how that fits the overall strategy of what you're trying to create. My last piece that I think you have to have knowledge in within the IT context of being an EdTech leader is you need to understand data security and data management. So this kind of comes out of the data systems and the networking pieces, but we all know that hacking is becoming a large problem. We also know that data usage in schools is a very big emerging field. We know that there's a strong need to connect data across systems and to access, leverage, present data is a very large need for the school, and to archive it and back it up and make sure it's accessible no matter what the circumstances are in the school. So having an understanding of those elements of using data and how people are going to do that through the systems that you provided is really key within your position in an EdTech leadership post. So I'd make sure you have a clear understanding of your backup and recovery procedures and systems. How are you managing and organizing data? What is your plan to aggregate data among systems or create some sort of reporting function between your various data systems? What are your security processes, limitations, user controls to access data or other systems that falls in this area? And what happens within emergency situations? Okay, so those 6 areas are the big elements of the IT part of educational technology leadership that I suggest that you have understanding of. Now, of course, this bears the question of, do I need to be an expert in these areas? And I would say no. So I've got a few things that I want to leave you with as you're thinking about why is this so important, or how do I really develop an understanding or take a good look at the IT elements of my job, of my skill set. So number one, as an educational technology leader, you just need to be able to speak the language. You have to understand what a packet is. You have to understand what server architecture is. You have to know what the cloud means, or security measures, or when I mentioned traffic shaping. Those are things that you should be versed in. Now, you don't need to be fluent, but you need to be able to speak the language. You need to be able to understand as you have kind of detailed conversations with internal staff and with board members and with vendors. You should be able to connect all those together with your understanding of the language. And then one thing I say to people within leadership positions is you don't need to know the password. That's not your post. You don't need to have your hands in the computer. You don't need to be able to log on as an administrator to particular systems. That's for other people. You are in a supervisory, a managerial, a leadership post within the IT. You are not an on-the-ground technician. You're not a designer. You're not an architect. You're not a systems administrator. And if you're doing that, you're either in a small school where that is needed, or you're having some confusion about where your role lies within the educational technology department. I will say this one thing that is a benefit to you, and that is the more that you know about the IT systems at your school, the more you're going to know about the school operations. There are no school operations within a contemporary school that are not touched very heavily by the IT systems or organized by the IT systems. So by knowing the architecture, knowing the design and connectivity of your IT systems, you then become an expert of your school, which makes you that much more invaluable, which helps you in the overall strategy of the school beyond the IT department and the EdTech department. You now understand how everything connects together. How does the admissions department work with the academics, which works with the finance? There is a flow there. There's a distinct connection that the finance department probably doesn't understand and the admissions doesn't understand with the academics. You can help make that connection. You can help talk about the entire forest, not just the trees. One thing that I've run into with certain people in certain situations is that they claim IT knowledge, but they don't have it. That causes very large problems. So one thing I'm going to say is don't fake it. Don't fake what you don't know. It's going to cause a situation for you that could be of detriment to the school, to you personally, to the operations and the IT or even data management of the school. It really never helps. And all of us within the IT element of the EdTech field, and I would say IT in general, know that we have gaps in our knowledge. And we're all very familiar with that. Some of the most well-known people in this field will say, you know what, I don't know much about data systems, or I'm just not a server guy. I don't know anything about servers. Or, you know what, I'm a server expert, but the client machines, you know, so I leave that with somebody else. So don't fake what you don't know. There's always a friend you can ask. There's always a resource online. There's always a consultant you can bring in to help solve your problem. If you fake it, though, you're going to run into some issues. One thing I say, kind of back to earlier when I was talking about you don't need to know the password, and kind of tying into this notion of the knowing the IT knows the operations, is that you need to see the forest. You need to have that overall picture of your IT systems. But that said, you should understand how to plant the trees. You should understand where each individual computer is and why you've made choices and kind of what to do in order to fix a problem. You don't have to do it yourself, but you need to know where to go to get those problems fixed. And then you're going to get to a point, maybe you're at that point at the beginning of this video going, you know what, I'm just not an IT expert. Does that mean that I can't be an EdTech leader? I would say no. What we'll find, and I'll mention this again in another video, is that most EdTech leaders are either very strong in the pedagogic side, the EdTech side, or they're very strong in the IT side. It's very rare to have both. But what you can do now is you can recognize that if the IT side is a weakness for you, that you can backfill that. You can upskill yourself in IT specific learning. There are a number of courses out there. There's a number of people within our network that you can talk to. You can play with things on your own system. Go ask questions of your own staff. Go take a look. Ask to create kind of a network topography. Say, I'd like to learn about our network. Help me draw it out. I don't know a lot about data systems. What are the key ones that we use at our school? I don't know anything about the cloud and what's challenging about the cloud. Go online. Go onto Google or YouTube. Find a vlog. And find information about what are the benefits and drawbacks of cloud-based architecture. There's a lot there. You can develop your own skill set by seeking out resources. If you really want to become a server or support expert on the IT side, there are certificates you can take. There are a number of companies out there willing to take your money to help train you and certify you through some pretty robust exams, and you will become very skilled in those things. So there is an opportunity to build those skills if you don't think you have them, and learn along the way. But as a successful EdTech leader, you will have to have an element of understanding of the IT systems, the networking, all of these elements, in order to be able to build the pedagogic side and to ensure the operations are working and that you can identify areas of inefficiency and areas for potential improvement. That falls within your realm as an educational technology leader. Thank you for listening. See you on the next video.